can't handle the tension, guys.
Yeah. Hey, Hal,
Yeah.
have you ever seen, you go on LinkedIn much? There's a guy named Eric Villard, Villard on LinkedIn, that is a Pentagon photo enhancer. And he's got pictures up there from Vietnam, the Gulf War, World War II, that a lot of them are taken by soldiers or, not necessarily photographers, but it's a fascinating job that he does with these.
Yep.
What's enhancement mean? I don't know.
I don't know what he does with them. I don't think he doesn't alter them, but he, better color, better sharpness, that kind of thing.
Yeah, patches them up, fixes them up, maybe.
Yeah, take a look. It's sometime I'd be curious what you think of it.
It's 12 o'clock.
I want to tell a quick story about Nick. Recently, Connecting published a pretty picture I took of Mandarin ducks in a little park in Costa Mesa. I saw Nick a couple of days later, and I said, Nick, I had a picture at Connecting. He said, I saw that. He took out his camera. He'd been there the day before and had taken 30 pictures of the ducks. But for Nick, it was routine. He hadn't even bothered sending them in. Incredible.
You beat him to the punch.
Yeah, indeed. That is not easy to do, Paul.
Well, happy belated birthday, Nick. Yesterday was your big day, or the day before?
Yesterday.
Yeah.
And, my children, my grandchildren, we had a big dinner last night.
Good.
Super.
And I had 1,000 fans in the world. They sent a message. I said, thank you. I cannot sleep all night.
How many grandchildren do you have?
I have my three grandchildren.
And you just turned 6.
My son had 1, my daughter had 2.
Okay. And you just turned 55 years old.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, Dave?
I can't count that high. What? Namilam.
Right.
Ah,
I figure what we'll do is, it's just a minute after 1 o'clock. I mean, 3 o'clock right now. Let's just give it a few more minutes for people to log in, and then we'll get started. Okay?
How many people do you have on there now? Can you tell, Peter?
Yeah, we have 47 at the moment.
Okay.
Mhm.
Peter, will the pictures will show up on screen?
I'm sorry?
Will the pictures of other people calling in show up on the screen?
Yeah, well, if you go to a gallery view, Chris,
Yeah, I just did that.
You'll see all the people that are participating.
Okay, yeah, there we go.
can't stand the tension, like waiting for the bombing of Baghdad to begin. Do I hear planes in the distance?
Where is the gallery view, Claude? Upper right.
I'm hoping Gene Herrick joins us, but I'm not sure if he does Zoom.
Surprised he does everything else.
Yeah.
Hey,
There's
Bob. Oh my God, Bob here. How are you, Bob?
Great. Who am I talking to?
Nick.
Hi, Nick.
How are you? You look good to see you.
Have a day.
Hey, Bob, Peter Arnett here. Good to see you again. It's been a while.
Yes, it has. Yes, it has.
Mhm.
Still standing up.
Hi, Dodie.
Hi, Nikki. How are you, my dear?
I hope we see Song Long next month.
I hope so. I think we're getting ready, huh?
I know Edie coming, her birthday.
No, her birthday's finished. Her birthday was on
I
Saturday.
know, but we together birthday.
We can make it later, sure. And then
Yeah,
my,
what- she come maybe next week or next 2 weeks. Who knows?
she didn't tell me, but I know, and then my birthday's end of May, so we can keep having many
Yeah,
birthdays.
real about birthday.
Yeah,
Me and I think next when my friend Dave Burnett next to me, the grandmother carried Rio boy called Happily, my grandchild, and she died at 1 second of my camera. And before I took a picture, I looked at the pagoda, I saw the girl with her arm running, called happily. Then I run in there, take a picture of her. Few maybe couple of shots, and I saw her body burn so badly. I know she will die. I really want to help her that day.
And you did help her, is that right?
Yeah, after I helped her, then with the water, then a friend of my BBC London, we all have the water. And after everyone, the media, they all left the village. I saw, oh, I don't want she die. And her uncle called me, she can take all the children to the hospital. I had an AP van, I pick her up. She sit on the floor only because her body burned so badly. And all the children jump in the car. And I told the driver, better hurry, go to hospital. And from there, about over 20 minutes, we live in the Gucci hospital, try to help, after maybe the nurse and doctor help Kim. But they don't want because they say we have too many soldiers, the people already under here. Can you take the Kim to Saigon Children's Hospital? I said, maybe like not an hour, she'll be dead. Then they will bring her inside after before I'm leaving the hospital, go back to Saigon.
I wonder, I wonder, I don't mean to interrupt the moderator, Chuck, but just from a little different perspective, could maybe David describe that scene on the highway that day? Get a, Nick's line is straight and to the point, and yours would be the same with a different flavor. Perhaps?
Let me just introduce David to the audience. For anyone that is not familiar, David Burnett is a highly accomplished photographer who we're fortunate to have with us, was with Nick at the scene of the napalm bombing that day.
It's so interesting. We all have, I suppose it would be like a big puzzle, and we each live in one little part of a puzzle, and we see the stuff around us. And my clearest memory that day is, and I had gone up with, that particular day, I was working for the New York Times, and a reporter named Fox Butterfield, who's still around. And, we just kind of got teamed up to go that day. It was in that world of the war being turned over much more to the Vietnamese forces, and the Americans were really on their way out. But you had to go out and find the action. You couldn't just get on an American helicopter anymore and go to where the action was. And we'd get a car from the Caravel Hotel, and you'd drive up the highway and just kind of asking questions along the way, like where is something going on? And I ended up being in Trang Bang. We didn't really know what was going on there, although we were all, I don't know, 300 or 400 meters outside of the village, and you could hear the fighting that was going on inside the village. And I mean, this is kind of in the photo world, a semi-famous Burnett moment, which was that I was shooting with one of my old, very difficult to load Leicas, and I was trying, as this Skyraider was coming in, I'm trying to get a picture and load this camera at the same time. The old knob wind Leicas were not easy to shoot with, or really to reload. You had to get the film just right to drop in there, and I was having trouble doing that. And I can remember standing with Nick and a Newsweek Washington Post stringer named Alex Shimkin, who ended up very sadly being killed in a firefight up north a couple of months later. And Alex was a big, tall, lanky guy who had spent a couple of years working as a volunteer in a small Vietnamese village, spoke Vietnamese, and he was there either for the Post or Newsweek that day, I'm not sure which. And he and Nick were right next to me, and the plane came in and there was this big fireball. And then out of that smoke, people started running just to get out of the village. And that was, these were the kids were kind of the forefront of that. And the thing that I most remember is that as the first figures came out of that smoke, that Nick and Alex, realizing exactly what had happened, just took off sprinting down the road at that moment. And I was still fiddling with my camera for another minute or so, trying to get it going. But it was like that was the thing. That was like watching journalists figure out what was happening and wanting to get in to find out more about what was going on. And I'm, within, I suppose, 30 seconds, that's when this picture was taken. The kids were coming out, and Nick and Alex headed that way. And it's so hard to explain to people when something like this happens that it's not an event. It isn't something that was planned. There's no program for it. You didn't wake up that morning knowing what was going on. And it's life happening in front of your camera. And I think that's one reason this picture is so strong, is it absolutely is a capturing of a improvised and unexpected moment.
David,
And I think,
if I might interrupt, I'm sorry, but we actually have the focal point of that photograph who has joined us, Kim Fook.
wow.
Here,
Okay, please.
Kim.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Oh my gosh, it's my Kim here. Hello, John, Kim.
Peter.
I believe
Oh,
you.
you are my uncle, Uncle David. Thank you for let me in.
Wow,
Congratulations,
this is pretty cool.
Uncle Ut.
Oh, thank you, Kim. I believe you're here with us. Surprise for me.
Thank you.
Kim, would you like to say a few words about your foundation?
Yes. That's great. What an honor to be with you all. Wow. When I got in, I heard about Uncle David, right? Talking about that little girl. I said, wow, not me, huh? And so about my foundation is named Kim Foundation International. So that is my dream come true, because after I got the bomb, and with all the thing I went through, and then I stayed in the hospital for 14 months, and I went through 17 operations in total. Then during the time I was in the hospital, I look at the doctors and nurses. They were really inspire me, and I wanted to be. They make me, I want, when I growing up, I want to become a doctor, so I can help people like they helping me now. And so, the long story but short, I tried to study medicine, and I got into medicine, but then another tragedy happened again. So it seemed to me like I lost my dream. But I'm so thankful. I keep my dream alive. And in 1996, I went to United States, and I met some friends, and I shared with them about my dream. I just want to help other people, especially for children. So they helped me, and we have the Kim Foundation. Our mission just focus on helping child victims of war around the world. So the majority we raise fund and to be a partnership with another foundation to build the hospital, to build the school, to build the orphanage, and library for children. That we just, for me, education is the most important for children. They need to have that. That about our foundation.
Kim, thanks so much for joining us. It's really a great honor to have you here today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you, Uncle Út.
I hope we go to Vietnam soon.
Oh,
And,
you're not yet.
open the library in Trang Bang.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
it's my dream to go back to do something to help children there. Actually, we want to build the library for children right in Trang Bang, where the area that they dropped the bomb. Yeah.
Thanks, Kim. David, did you have anything else you wanted to add? You're on mute.
All I would say is I had the honor 9 years ago to be in Toronto when the 40th anniversary of that day, when so many people who had been there that day came to Toronto, and an evening, a dinner where everyone spoke who had been there, and there just seemed to be something kind of beautiful and fulfilling about 40 years after that terrible day, that everything kind of came together in a wonderful, wonderful way. And so much because of her really beautiful and positive attitude has come out of what was a terrible day if you were there on the day of.
Thank
Thanks
you.
so much.
Good, David.
There's a lot more that we could say about the picture, but I want to ask Peter Arnett. Peter, what are your recollections of Nick, particularly early in his career? Do you remember when you first met him?
You know, Paul, that when we first met Nick Hood, the AP Saigon Bureau was in a very distressed state. Just a few days earlier, Bernard Kohlenberg, a photographer who had come in from the US as a photographer of the AP, had been killed in action. And then now, Nick Hood's brother, Huynh Thanh My, a beloved young guy, Vietnamese photographer, who came out with me on quite a few operations to cover the growing war. He was killed in the Mekong Delta in October 10. And we first met his brother, Nick Hood, and actually his wife and other family members when the funeral cortege moved around Saigon. There were a couple of hundred mourners there. And here was Nick Hood and the family. And I remember in that crowd, there was Ed White, Hugh Mulligan was there. I was George Esper. There was an AP congregation of people who would really be committed to the Vietnam War for the rest of the war. But here was Nick, and my recollection is that Nick came up to Ed White and I at some point and said that, expressed the idea that he wanted to come to the AP because his brother had taught him so much about photography and it inspired him. And in fact, his brother's tuition had taken the place of any kind of real education. Nick was from a village of Tai Son in the Mekong Delta that was in the path of the Civil War. The Viet Cong had emerged out of that part of the Mekong Delta, 20 years earlier. And Nick Hood, as Hal Buell writes, would often be hiding in his house as the recruiters were coming looking for young people. So, but what Nick knew was photography. But I remember him telling Ed White and I, I want to come to the AP. And we said, no, you should go back to your family. And he said, AP, my family now. That's how I remember it. That is, Hal Buell eloquently describes the fact that Nick became incorporated into the AP staff over the objections of Horst Fass, who was really worried about Nick's safety. The fact that a family member had already been killed, that Horst eventually brought him into the bureau as a photo assistant. And I remember in the middle of '97 that I was assigned to do just a story on the street life of Saigon. And Nick volunteered to take the pictures. And you know what? They were great pictures, and the story was very well used. And I noticed in the book, there's a whole bunch of pictures that Nick had taken that day in '67. So by then he was incorporated into the AP. He was becoming a part of the scene, and with the Tet Offensive and events that followed, he proved his competence and his willingness to take the risks and his ability and professionalism to become a valued member of the Saigon Bureau up to the fall of Saigon in 1975. So it's my great pleasure to be here talking about Nick today with all the others of you, David Burnett, who knew Nick at the time, but what he was doing was of major significance. And of course, Kim Fook here. What a pleasure. What a pleasure to see you again.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'd like to add there, Peter's excellent rundown on Nick's early life. There really was a strong resistance to bringing Nick on the team in 1965 and 66 after Win Tom Me, his brother, died. Nick was extremely close to his brother. In fact, he called his brother number 7. We'll get to that a little later because he was the 7th born. And he referred to him oftenly as number 7. But Nick was, his entire inspiration came from me to be a photographer. And what is interesting about that period to me was an aspect of Nick's personality was just persistent about getting on the AP staff. The first go around, he was chased away, but he came back repeatedly until finally Horst Fass, who was the photo boss, and Ed White, who was chief of bureau, relented and brought Nick in, as Peter pointed out, as a darkroom person. He made prints and learned still more about photography, making all those prints that were running through the bureau for those years. But it was a persistence that Nick carried throughout his life, and it's kind of reflected in the book. His idea to do what he had to do and to speak with his camera more than with his words.
Thanks, Hal. For anyone on the panel, I'd like to get your thoughts. Although the book is obviously focused heavily on Nick and his career, it's really a short course in journalism, photojournalism, particularly during the Vietnam War. Would you agree?
Yes, and maybe this is the time to talk about how that picture was handled by the AP. At that period in time, I don't know how many of you here remember the old streaker fad that was banging around in the early '70s, where people were running naked at sports events, and we had to put out, I had to partially write along with my colleagues, we had to put out a notice to our staff, no naked frontal nudity. And the purpose of that was to keep very naughty pictures off the wire. And it was rather successful at the time. We didn't get stuck with any of that. when Nick's picture rolled into New York, bear in mind, nobody had seen the picture except Tokyo, which was a relay point, an automatic relay. It was obvious that this picture had a great careful consideration. I think that sometimes people who are unfamiliar with the nitty gritty of wire service work think that we kind of just slice off the salami one slice after another, but there is actually a very careful handling, particularly of very controversial or difficult pictures, of which Nick's was. First of all, the picture was very brutal, and our history of using brutal pictures on the wire often resulted in member complaints, and also when published in newspapers, a lot of negative reader reactions. So we had to consider the power, the brutal part of the picture. And that was enhanced by the nudity of it. Here was a picture of a young child running down a highway naked. And on the Saigon desk, before the picture was transmitted, there was a discussion about that. And the picture was held up for a short time as the editors there discussed, well, this picture published. AP had never carried a picture like this. It was a first time. Horst and Peter had been at lunch, Peter may recall, and they came into the bureau at the time when this discussion was going on. And Horst laid out the pictures and immediately decided the picture had to be transmitted to New York, which it was, of course. And as we looked at it in New York, we had to consider many aspects of it. There would be a political response to a picture like that. Any of the harsh pictures from Vietnam drew the pro-war people were negative about it, and used the picture for support their positions, and the anti-war people pointed out how violent the war was and what were we doing in a place like that. So that was very possible. In my judgment, as was that the picture was not prurient. While it was frontal nudity, it was not prurient. And then we discussed this with a group of editors. It wasn't my decision alone, but we passed around the ideas of what the picture made. We had to consider, was it really good enough? Was it a good enough picture to overcome the objections to the picture, which was the nudity and the violence of it? But it was an unusually superior picture. It had iconic value just looking at it because it was simple, first of all, and because the various elements of the picture supported the center of the picture. The boy on the left, Kim's brother, was crying and screaming, and there were two little children on the right holding hands running down the highway. So there was an overall value to the picture that was instantly appealing. So in the end, after our long discussion, one thing we had to discuss also in that context was that while we only distribute the picture, we didn't publish it, we didn't print it, but the same conversation would certainly be held on newspapers. But when AP puts a picture on the wire, it does give it a certain authenticity of importance and in the case of this picture, possible usage. As it turned out, the picture was very widely played. And in our conversations about the picture, I don't want to think that we had a checklist that we checked off 1, 2, 3 points. But as we discussed it, you gradually morphed into a consideration that the picture was not only worth using, but really had to be used, because the world had to see that this picture told of the violence of that war, and in fact, as it turned out over time, the violence in all wars. It has become an anti-war icon historically.
Thanks, Hal. I want to shift gears slightly because Nick's really had 2 careers, and I want to hear from Nick. Nick, what are some of the highlights of your so-called second career once you arrived in the United States?
When I remember I arrived United 1975 before I transferred to Tokyo and to Tokyo, LA. I say, well, when I live in America, forget about war. Maybe now focus on Hollywood, more Hollywood, how to crazy traffic in LA, every day went for my assignment. And I learned so much in America. I coach sport, all the story, everything. When I spent like more 40 years in LA, my assignment, mostly Hollywood. And I work like with my friend Linda does. We cover every day, go to courthouse. And O.J. Simpson, all kind of story when I cover many years.
And do you mind telling us the Paris Hilton story?
I remember I come back from vacation in Vietnam, and next day AP after Nikki, you go to West Hollywood, cover the Paris Hilton, and I say, I had to be there like early mornings, like 7 a.m. I saw like over 100 people be there with the media. I'm a short guy. I don't know how to get a picture, but I look at I saw her father and mother stand outside the gate before she go in jail. Bully come get in jail. I know they would stop 1 second. That's why I had a picture there. Mm-hmm. Picture Perry before you go in jail. Then the AP commission, Nikki, you need to go to county jail, picture her there. I parked my car next to all the TV stations, CNN, everyone there. I say, Nikki, congratulations. You had a picture of Perry Hilton. I said, I don't believe I had a picture. Then everyone talk about my picture, UNH and Kim Fook and Perry Hilton almost same day, same time. I said, oh my God, I don't believe that photo, same time, at noon, Perry go in jail. At noon, Kim Fook hit by napalm. Mm-hmm.
It was 35 years to the day, if I'm not mistaken.
That's 35 years later.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Nick, you might tell that all the time you covered the war, nobody personally pointed a weapon at you, but it did happen in Los Angeles during the riots. Tell us about that.
I remember I covered Ronnie King in Center LA, and I saw one man hold a shotgun. He said, "We not allow you here." I saw a media pack. The man hold a gun. I don't want to fight with him. I just leaving it out here. Then I carry my long lens. I don't want to go too close. But if you complain, then we get shot. That's why I get out right a moment.
Good for you.
In Vietnam, nobody hold a gun to me, but to come to America, somebody hold a gun. Should I shoot you? Unbelievable.
Well, no one held a gun on you in Vietnam, but you were wounded several times.
No, I don't have either Viet Cong nor put a gun to me. They want to fighting the action shot or something. Nobody come too close with me, hold a gun to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Let me make a comment here. The course of the war, Nick was wounded twice in action. And Hal Buell has some excellent descriptions of it. That his photo production from 1969 through the invasion of Cambodia, his pictures in Cambodia, his pictures in 1972 when covering the Vietnamese forces under serious attack by the North Vietnamese, at the time when he did take the picture of Kim Fook, but a few weeks later he returned with Neil Ulovich, and he was wounded there in an artillery explosion. That primarily in the fall of Saigon, Nick was in the Central Highlands in March of '75, got incredible photographs of the exodus from the highlands to the coast around Saigon. He was doing these pictures, but because of the whole confusion of the war and the massive information, political and otherwise, we didn't see many of those photographs. But my feeling is that if you put it all together Nick Ut's reputation, which is based really on that picture of Kim Phuc, it qualifies to be the same value as all the other earlier photographers of the AP who are justifiably famous. Nick had the same outstanding production of them. And he had a lot of danger, but he worked his way through to the point he's with us here today. Always good to see you, Nick.
Me too, Peter.
I think the book bears that out. The photography, the body of work is so much more than just the Pulitzer photo. Those pictures of the evacuation and the exodus are remarkable. Peter Costanzo, where are we on time?
We're good. If you have any final questions, I thought maybe Chris Sullivan, who
Yes.
edited the book, if you'd like to.
Can I say something about Chris? Chris is a marvelous editor, and I would urge anybody who ever does a book, run it through Chris, because he has a gimlet eye on that text, every comma, every period, every twisted phrase. And I think the polish that he added is a very important factor. And so I, in public, say thank you again, Chris, for the work you did, keeping me honest and sensible.
Well, I would say I've actually read the book. Peter Costanzo sent me a copy. I think it's a brilliant presentation. The photographs magnificent. Hal Buell's writing about Nick, I think it was the best work he had done in the half dozen books he'd done on Vietnam. I think this is an engrossing, important contribution to the media history of Vietnam, an important one and really a necessary one because of Nick's contribution. And so congratulations to Peter Costanzo, who, by the way, helped me get two books published through the AP just a few years ago. Also very well produced by Peter and his team.
Going back to what you said, send me your address for the check for the testimonial. I'll get that off right away. I wrote a couple of notes about the book. It's everything that everybody said. It's a really wonderful read. I might say something to reflect my own thought at the beginning of going into it when I heard about the project. You might think that the subject of this book is something simple. Everybody knows Nick's photograph is known by everybody in the world, and we all know what it signifies. We know how important it is as an iconic image of the reality of war. You might think that it came about simply. If people who don't know the story, which means most people, might think about it, that it came about simply that this happened to be a photographer who, by some lucky break, happened to be on a highway at a certain moment, who happened to get the framing of the picture right. And none of that is true. And as you learn, as you read Hal's story, that's the practice that Nick had gone through in the years before this, covering so many significant battles and other things. The experience of his working with his brother, all this background material, all of that played a part of on that day on that highway. You also don't think of when you think of the framing of it. There's a wonderful part of the book describing how Nick was, what was in Nick's mind as he was heading back to the bureau. He had not seen whether the picture came out, whether the shot he took actually worked. He was thinking about the photo, the lighting, and so forth. And it's that kind of stuff that it's that among many other things that make this a special book. There's nothing at all simple about it. The I won't go into the story of at the hospital. When they get to the hospital, is an extremely dramatic, emotional kind of a climax of that part of the story. None of the people don't know this material. That people don't know the story really that in any detail of Nick and Kim, which is a wonderful, beautiful story. So that in general, that's what I would say about this. It may seem like something that we all know about, and believe me, until you read this book, you don't know the half of it. It's a very, very special book.
Thank you, Chris. Peter, would you like to go to questions?
Yeah, I think maybe it's time for Q&A. And so what we can do, there are two ways we can do this. You can type a question into the chat section if you like, or if you'd like to be unmuted, if you're able to unmute yourself, you can do so and ask a question, or you can use the reaction option at the bottom of the Zoom panel where you can choose to raise your hand and we will pick you there. So you have 2 or 3 different ways that you can ask a question.
Getting back to a point that Chris just made, I'd just like to put in my 2 cents. To technically make the Kim Phuc picture is actually a difficult picture to make. I know in my career, so-called career as a photographer, I would have had trouble making that picture of a person running towards me. Nick's not known for his sports photography. That's a great sports photo in that context.
So Paul Stevens would like to know what was the reaction from the White House of the photograph?
I suppose I can offer one thing about that. In the course of the release of the Nixon tapes during Nixon's problems with the world, he is quoted as asking one of his assistants, Haldeman, asking him, do you suppose they were discussing Vietnamization and the withdrawal of American troops. In that context, he said, you think the picture was fixed? What he meant exactly by fixed, but that there was something wrong with the picture. And the Haldeman response said, well, it's possible, but that was the end of it. And beyond that, there was no reaction. General, help me, Peter, his name's
Westmoreland, General Westmoreland.
Westmoreland, yeah. Westmoreland gave a speech in which he was critical of the media and how the media was one of the reasons the Vietnam War ended the way it did. And as an example, he gave this picture. He said that girl was not a napalm victim. It was a result of a cooking fire somehow.
Oh, really?
And that kicked around for a while. It came up again. Horst Foss was at another meeting subsequent to that a couple of months later, and he challenged Westmoreland and said, what about that? And Westmoreland said, I don't want to talk about it anymore. Because in the interim, there had been a serious investigation with the comparison of there was some footage made by some of the TV people who were at the Trang Bang. And it was impossible to say connection with the napalm attack. That's the sum total of the government reaction. Slightly negative, obviously, but wrong.
One of the questions from Cliff Schiappa, I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly.
Hi, Cliff.
Did newspaper members report on reader reaction, negative or positive?
I want to say goodbye. I have another commitment.
Thank you so much, Kim.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Congratulations on good. I love you all. Thank you. Thank you.
So
where do we stand here? Is there a question? Or?
Yeah, the question was, what was the reaction from members?
Well, the play, that is to say, the usage of the picture was broad. It was moved in time to be in most morning newspapers in the U.S. Morning following the day it was made, and it was just extremely widely used. And the letter that would come to me or to the president of the AP, but there were no formal complaints about the picture from newspaper editors, and as far as I can tell, from readers. I may have missed something, but I don't believe I did. I think I would have heard about it if I would have been the first one to hear about it if there were complaints.
So we still have time for more questions if anyone would like to ask the panel.
There we go.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm wondering, there was a hell of a lot of pictures, how they all got gathered together. How did you find them all?
Nick's pictures? Well,
Yeah, in the book.
First of all, many of them are in the digital archive, and that's been a godsend for researchers, because you search on Vietnam War, Nick Ut, and hundreds of pictures pop up on the screen. That was easy. I had done a previous book called Vietnam, the 10,000 Day War, in which, this was after I retired, which I literally looked at the entire negative collection, which was, Chuck can probably tell me how many frames are in there if he ever counted them, but it took 8 weeks to get through them all. And so you had kind of up to talk what, and it's just basic hard-nosed research, digging it out. Some pictures we didn't use in the book, in this book we did, but the top of the cream of the crop is there, and pictures that were relevant to Nick's story are there.
Well, I'm surprised, Hal, because during the war, the digital business hadn't really swung in then.
That's true. Those pictures,
120 RPM or 60 or rather. And a lot of pictures didn't quite make it into the archive, I think, when the crossover came from analog.
well, there was an effort when I did the book on the big book, which had 2,000 Vietnamese war pictures in it. We separated those negatives, and Chuck, who was the moderator, was in charge of the library at the time, and I think a lot of pictures were metadated and entered into the archive.
Yeah.
It was catching up with history for an archive that came online around 1993. Catching up with 150 years of photographic history is quite a chore, which is still underway.
So Paul Stevens has another question. He's raised his hand.
Okay, Nick, were you using or was there such a thing as a motor drive back then with your camera? And were there multiple frames that this one was selected from that were all similar? How did that process go?
I don't think we had a motorized at this 70. After 73, then the AP sent the Nikon F with motorized, but too late. When I picked the napalm, no motorized at all. It's my hand right here. It's my motorized. With my Leica. Yeah.
Were there multiple images that you shot of that same scene?
Yeah.
Okay, then a photo editor in Tokyo would have been the one that selected that picture?
We sent a picture from Saigon to Tokyo. Tokyo collect all the pictures, then they sent to New York.
The basic editing for that on-scene editing was done in Saigon, not in Tokyo.
Yeah, everything Saigon, before the transmit in Tokyo only. Mm.
Hal, you had mentioned the number 7, the significance of the number 7, but we haven't actually talked about that yet. You want to tell that story?
I will tell that story. Good old Nick called his brother number 7, Ambe number 7.
Yeah,
As I mentioned earlier, he was the seventh in line. And after the day's activity on the day of the shooting, Nick went back and looked at the film again. And as photographers know, the frame number is automatically exposed in the sprocket line. And believe it or not, that picture was number 7. And I think to this day, you correct me, Nick, but I think to this day that Nick believes his brother was somehow mysteriously helping him make that photograph. Do I misstate that, Nick?
that's true.
That's true.
I think my brother always next to me. That's why when the picture came, I always pray my brother. And I believe when we filmed the Balab and see the next 7. Mhm.
Let me paint a quick picture of the Saigon Bureau that day. Nick had come back from the battlefield and said he had these great pictures. Horst Voss and I were having lunch. We returned to the Bureau in a hurry, and the photo editor, Jackson Ishizaki, had already souped Nick's film. So we called Horst over, and they were going over it. And Horst came out of the photo department. I was just watching him, and he held up the negative and he said, "Nick Ut, this is a fantastic picture you've taken." That was in the Bureau. So even at the first moments that we were all aware that something photographically, journalistically historic had happened. Right, Nick?
Can I just say one thing? I was in the dark room when that first print came out. And I remember Horst, who I didn't get to know Horst as well as all of you knew him, but to me, Horst, wherever he was and whatever his title was, he was always in charge. I think that's a fair description, right? But I remember
Personally,
where Jackson had that first 5x7 or 5x8 print, and we're all kind of eyeing it. And Horst looked at him and said, "You do good work today, Nickot." That was it. That's all you had to know. But I will never forget that one.
Horst was a brilliant editor, and AP was very fortunate to have him in Vietnam at that time. He was one of those rare editors who, in a single snap or a single vision, could see all the problems of a major photo operation of any kind. He was more than a photographer. He was a finished journalist who decided to use pictures instead of words. But his understanding of photography and understanding of wire service photography, which is a lot more than making pictures. It's a very complicated process. Getting that picture out of Saigon, you have to shoot it, you have to process it, you have to transmit it, you have to fight radio circuits, which are unreliable. And then you had to pass the gateway in New York, which was the final gateway to the world. And Horst had a grip on all that. In the case of this particular story, he sent us a message, which was pretty much routine, but not always happens. He sent us a message saying some great pictures are coming. Make sure you take a look at it. And he got a call. It was difficult to have phone conversations with Vietnam, but Horst somehow managed a phone call to New York. And by the time he got it through and called me and said, I hope you got a look at the pictures. I said, Horst, it's already on the wire. Send everything you have that will support the picture.
So we have another question that's come in from Julie Dahl. She wants to know how would the timeline and consideration of an image like that, the Napalm Girl image, how would that maybe be treated today if an image like that was photographed? Do we think the reaction would be different, or do we think it would be generally the same?
Do you mean the handling of the picture? Is that what she wants to know, I guess?
Yeah, I think if we were to send it out.
I will tell a story of our photographer who was involved in the January 6th thing at the Capitol. These days, photographers have cameras where they make a picture and it can instantly be on a desk in New York, and can either be looked at New York and sent on, or can automatically be sent on. So the time frame of handling pictures, 1972 compared to 2021, is hours or maybe days in some cases back then to instant now. It's just the time frame is collapsed completely. It's just a whole different kind of a handling.
And what about the reaction though? What do you think if an
Well, I think
image
the
like
reactions are the same. I think it will be more and more difficult in the future to find or see pictures that gain the general acceptance that an Iwo Jima picture, or Eddie Adams' famous Saigon execution picture, or Nick Ut's picture. The supply of pictures in those days was more limited. Now, with digital photography, everybody's making a picture, and there are thousands of pictures available every day, and the quality of the pictures are greater. The photographers are better. They're educated. They have better equipment. And so the general level of photography is higher. So that means the threshold for a picture to become iconic, in the sense that Nick's or Joe Rosenthal's or Eddie's picture are iconic, are much tougher to overcome.
One thing I thought maybe both Chris and Hal could speak about is the book is not just about the one iconic photo that Nick took. One of the things that we set out to do was really show the breadth of Nick's talent, and with all the different photography he took over the years, right up until literally, I think a week before we published this book, we took a photo that Nick had just taken of an eagle in flight, or an osprey in flight, capturing a fish with its claws. And also Nick, of course, receiving the Medal of Arts in Washington, D.C., which was to us a moment we wanted to include in the book, and we were able to. So if you and Chris could maybe talk about our intent to show that there was much more to Nick's eye for photography than just the one iconic photo.
Well, no, the idea was to focus in on Nick as a photographer. Those early pictures he made that Peter referred to of street life in Vietnam were actually, even at that tender age, Nick, a teenager, they were well done street pictures. And there's two or three in the book, and if you look at them, you can see that the photographer knew what he wanted to say on his film and did it. And that was true with Nick's pictures, forward looking. And we focused in on Nick here. This is not a book about all of Vietnam, but it is a book about a photographer who worked all of Vietnam, lived in all of Vietnam during the war years, and represents a lot of what happened in the world of photography. But Nick always had an eye for pictures, and in his later years, since he's retired, and even quite a few times before he retired, he was doing nature photography that would stand up in any catalog of nature pictures. There are really some fine nature pictures that are in the book, and take a look and see. And he's done his pictures of Hollywood. Hollywood photography is kind of, everybody gathers and they all make their pictures, but even there, Nick's pictures were just right. And there's no way to explain it. When you look at it, you can see, yeah, this guy made a picture, he knew how to make a picture. And I think the book shows that, picture to picture.
I would also mention the pictures of wildfires and the riot pictures and some of the other ones. It's not all Hollywood celebrities. I came to this again with a little tiny bit of skepticism about the Hollywood side of it, of the story. Going into it, I thought, well, this is one of the great war photographers, a great news photographer. What are we, why would we be focusing on Hollywood celebrities, Paris Hilton types? I think what Hal does again is put that in context in the book. The example earlier of the Paris Hilton photo exactly 35 years to the hour after the Kim Phuc photo, and the reaction. I think somebody wrote a column making a comparison of the two pictures and drawing from that the context that Hal includes sort of completes the story. As Hal said earlier, it's a kind of a microscopic look at Nick's life, and if he did in fact start in a place that at times was a bit of a hell, the Hollywood part is the other end. He at the end of his career, he's saluted by Hollywood movie stars. That's quite a story.
From hell to Hollywood, that's what we call it.
Peter,
I-
you want to chime in?
I would like to add that in my reading of the book, what came through was the AP people that contributed to Nick's life and career, beginning at Ed White and Sam Jones, bringing back to Saigon in October 11, the body of Nick's brother. Then the personalities that were helping Nick, Eddie Adams, he knew well, Hort Fuss, Henri Hewitt, and his colleagues, Don Van Fook, a photographer, Kung. These people came right through to Neil Ulovich, bringing Nick's body to a hospital in 1972. And then finally, the fall of Saigon, and here we have Linda Deutsch in the U.S. helping to acclimatize and have the AP Vietnamese people relocated in the U.S. And this is very much part of it, a great AP story, I think. Not only how the AP handles this incredible talent and these incredible pictures, but how it really care of its people. That really came through to me. Why? Also because the AP took care of me for a long time. And I think this comes through in this book, courtesy of Hal Buell's really sensitive writing about the whole process.
Well, there's a passage in the book that kind of hits at that note. Nick is arriving in Japan. He leaves Saigon the day before the city falls, and he's in the Philippines for a while, and he's in Guam for a while, and he's in Pendleton for a while, and finally he's sent to Japan. And who's meeting him at the gate and at Narita Airport? Ed White. Ed White, who brought his brother back from the war. Ed White, who wrote the story when the day of the picture, Ed Wright wrote the story about when that picture was made. And Ed White is now in Japan, and here's Nick coming in, and they help Nick get settled. So yeah, there is this thing about the AP family that we all of us senior types lived through and rely upon a great deal.
There's an interesting section also about Linda Deutsch finding the AP evacuees from Saigon in the refugee camp.
Yeah, she was assigned to cover the refugee story and spring the 42 AP people who were living in tents after having been flown into the U.S. from the Philippines, which she did. She got them out, and on they went from there. Right, Nick?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, Linda looked for all the Vietnamese stuff, the refugee camp. She asked somebody, the people, say, well, you see any AP stuff camp in Guam? And they show her where exactly. And at first I saw Linda say, wow, you look like Edie later, because what took Sam to me. Then we joked a little bit, and 2 years later, I don't believe I back there, I work together with Linda almost every day. My Simon.
Well, Chuck, I think unless there are any final questions from anyone, I think we probably Could call it into the Q&A session as well, unless there's anyone else who'd like to ask a question.
Well said, everyone.
Any,
Hey, Peter, thanks for pulling this together.
you're welcome. Any parting thoughts from our panelists before we wrap it up?
I'm glad you were asked me to do the book. It was a pleasure to do and an enjoyment, and I enjoyed it greatly. I hope everybody who reads it finds it useful and informative and maybe even entertaining.
I just hope when I'm your age, Hal, I have the same amount of energy and work ethic and focus as you did work on this project.
A young fellow at heart, please.
But let me make one quick comment. I live in Southern California now, and for the past decade, I've been living part of the life that Nick Hood has. Nick Hood is a celebrity, particularly in the area of Little Saigon, near where I am. Everyone knows Nick Hood. He's also really a very competent party giver. When Nick has lunch, and I think we may be having lunch later today or tomorrow, he will have the most interesting people from the community around here, not only from Little Saigon, but there'll be a CIA guy who knew Nick. There'll be U.S. military people who knew him. So there's a world revolving around Nick these days that's really very pleasant to be part of. So Nick is hanging in there, I assure you all, still taking a lot of great pictures, as Hal said. Thank you.
I think that Unit 8, after Unit 8, me and Peter and Hot Fat, we went back to Grand Ban early morning, and we still see the smell, dead body, the soldier, and Viet Cong. And I found out that the Kim Phuc, the parent, the mother and father running look for her. Then I took a picture of the mother screaming, and I told, who you looking for? And then she, oh, I look at my daughter, Kim. Then I told she not happy though. She might be died already. Who knows? Then she run on away. We take a vitamin, smoke, good drivers and drive in the hospital. And next 2 days, the family called me again. She found she's still alive and stay in Saigon Children's Hospital. After a year, I picture Kim and her family always call me, thank you, Uncle Ut, you help my daughter, and we become friends. And like Kim Phuc, almost 51 years, almost 50 years now, I talk to her almost every week. Really, she called me yesterday, and I always worry about how she feels. I know because she did a treatment a couple of years ago in Miami, and I want to be there with her, took a picture of her baby. And she like part of my family, she like my daughter, and she, every time I call her how she feel, then we talk about next year, 50th anniversary about her picture. Then we need to go back to Vietnam, build a library for her. The money from the American veteran, try to collect all the money, build the library for Kim. Hope they open it next year.
Charlie Moncella is asking, how is Kim's health now? Obviously, Kim was here earlier and had to leave, but if anyone has knowledge of that and feels that they can answer that question, go right ahead.
Probably Nick can. More than anybody.
Yeah, I'm so happy she's here today with us. And 2 months ago, she broke an arm in the Toronto when the winter time. She outside her house, she fought by snow accident. And now doctor tell her she, like for 6 months, she recovered. when her arm broken. Mhm.
But in general, she's in good health, correct?
She got help, but she cannot move her arm now. Her husband help her.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Right. Dodie Fromson is making a comment that just mentioning how critical the photo was as it flashed around the world, showing the cruelty of the Vietnam War. Does anyone want to speak to that impact in terms of the world recognition that the photo received and its impact on how people viewed the war at the time?
Well, excuse me.
As a result of that image.
Excuse me. Yeah. The impact of the photo was incredible. I'm sorry, I'm stuck here a minute. It just was, it was of course widely used. And I think a lot of people who were on the fence about the war were knocked off the fence. Its impact, made it a little different than some pictures, is its impact continued alive and to this day. Horst Foss described it best when he said that the picture is a picture that doesn't rest. It keeps coming up again over and over again in one context or another. Witness the Paris Hilton story, witness the Afton Poston story, which you may recall when it was taken off of Facebook. So it keeps coming up. And so the impact is great. It is an all-time icon, rating with Joe Rosenthal's and Eddie's and some of the other great icon pictures. So I think it will be part of history as far out as you can see. That's frankly obvious.
I would add the international impact of this photograph. In the last 4 years, Nick Ut has traveled to all continents except the Antarctic, and receiving awards, discussing from universities in Japan, particularly in Germany, the photographic people have adopted him. He's been in India several times. He's been in China several times, Europe often. So before the pandemic, Nick was overseas, I would say 50% of his time. And his picture is the reason that he travels. Domestically, the television networks love Nick. He mentioned that Kim Phuc had an operation on her arm a couple of years ago. I think ABC covered it on the morning show. So Nick is often on television along with that picture. And even more than say Eddie Adams' picture or Mel Brown's picture of the burning bomb. As Hugh said, as Hal said, this picture has a longevity that is maybe unique in photography.
Well, I think that's a perfect note to end on. Chuck, any last comments before we wrap it up?
No, I'd just like to thank everyone for joining us, and especially the panelists who have done such a great job speaking to Nick's legacy.
Yes, thank you, Paul Stevens, for allowing us to promote this on your Connecting newsletter and for hosting this event and for letting us all share these stories and let everyone know about the book, From Hell to Hollywood, The Incredible Journey of AP Photographer Nick Ut by Hal Buell. Well, thank you so much, everybody. We really appreciate you tuning in, and maybe we can do this again sometime.
Yeah. Happy birthday, Nick.
Yes, happy
Oh,
birthday.
thank you, Paul. Thank you so much. And thank you for everyone. Thank you, Peter Arnett, Dave Burnett, and Bob, and Dodie, everyone today. I'm so happy to see you in here. Mhm.
Everybody, thank you
Be
so
right
much.
to you next month.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Hey, my buddy, how are you? Ryan,
Good,
Nikki.
Nikki.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, bye.
Thank you.
We go.
Thanks so much.
All
All,
right, bye.
bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
thank you, Peter. Thank you, Chuck.
Okay.